Zela. Zela.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Down and Dirty with the Badger State Tractor Pullers, brought to you by Salama Enterprises, Wettenkamp Transport, Trip Downing, Casper Egg, and Front Street Toys. So I'd like to welcome Chris Feller on with Greg Elsing, myself, and Ryan Zolik here tonight. Hey, Chris.
How you doing, John?
Doing good.
How's Chris doing?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. There you go. Keeping busy.
Oh, yeah. Trying to figure out what tariff is next and who's going to charge me more next and all that fun stuff. So,
you haven't figured out how to get around them yet?
No, I haven't. Yeah. Have to hire some military planes to fly my stuff over or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Maybe they're for rent.
Yeah, I heard there's guys getting around it by shipping stuff to other countries and moving it through, but I don't know if that's true or not. But
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Well, it's all by country of origin when it comes across the border into customs. No matter where it comes in, whatever the major content of the originating country is, what you get tariffed by.
Yeah.
You could send parts to China, to Mexico, and if it's still over a certain content in China, you still get taxed at the tariffed at the China levels. You can't get around. Make it in the United States.
Hopefully, yes. That's what the goal is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You got plants, 2 in China or 1 in China, you said?
Yeah. That's going to be interesting as time goes on. Large OEMs. If you want to deal with large OEMs, you have to play the game and have supply chain around the world. So sometimes that changes as time goes on, and it has now. So you got to change with the times.
Why don't you just put a different price or value on it when it comes in?
Oh, we do, but that'll force your customers to look elsewhere.
No, but like Nike shoes, they bring them in at $10. The tariff is if it's 100%, it's $20 for a pair of Nike shoes. They sell them for $160.
Right. But yeah, when they come in, the whole idea is bring it back to the United States. So, at a point it becomes cheaper to manufacture in the United States than in a different country. They just have to make all the tariffs fair between all the countries, because if you tariff some countries at this level and other countries at a lesser level, all they're going to do is then shift all their production to the other lower tariff countries. So you gotta balance it out.
Right.
The first thing is we got to find and train workers in the United States. So all the skill trade, all the trades are out of the high schools, and if we're not training them, then we can't bring manufacturing back because there's no one to do it. So hopefully couple of my buddies have been out in Washington a couple times, and hopefully we're going to make a difference where we actually bring trade training back into the high schools, buy CNC machines and train people to do that kind of stuff. That's where it's going to start, but it's going to take 20 years to unravel the mess we got ourselves into. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but.
Right. The number of good paying jobs.
Oh, very good. I mean, some kids go to college, rack up a college degree, debt, and they dig out of it after 10 years. And other people that have gone into trades and got a high paying job, right out of high school, at the end of life, they end up even anyway, and maybe behind. So
right. They was telling me that there was an ad in the paper for a machinist. If you had no training, you could start at $60,000 a year, and after the first year, it'd be at $85,000.
Yeah. There's jobs out there like that. Yep.
Yeah, with zero training. Yeah, they said they'd rather train you in their shop than at a school.
Yeah, I mean the school. So you got to think of it like this: the schools are only as good as their instructor. So if they don't understand machining or whatever they're training, as well as what's being done out in the marketplace right now, that person's going to come out and only be as good as their teacher. And it's hard to find good teachers in high school for trades because high schools need to pay them a lot of money, or they could just go in trades and make more. You know what I mean? So it's we gotta pump more money into the high schools and pay our teachers more to do this kind of stuff. Otherwise, we're not going to dig out of it.
Right. Well, what do you got for a video for us today?
I don't know. We need to talk about tractor pulling. That gets kind of depressing after a while.
Yeah. We need to talk about tractor pulling. Yeah.
Well, so Ryan, after each video, each segment, you'll be able to tell, we can stop it. So you go ahead and stop it there. So I just put a bunch of videos together so you can kind of see, some of the different processes. Some of the stuff we're doing for tractor pulling, other ones are just process. Ryan, I don't know how easy it is for you to run back and forth between the videos, but that first one you've seen is a stamping process. So basically, we're feeding rolls of raw material, gauge material into the machine, sheet metal, and stamping out and there'll be more as we go along, and stamping out a final part in a bracket or a cover. There you go. You got the rolls going in the machine there.
How many different pieces stamping out at one time?
It depends. I mean, you could stamp out 20 pieces. You can stamp out one piece, just depending. But yeah, the dies that are in the machine are all custom made for that piece. And when you hammer that thing out of there, it's putting holes and bends and everything in there all at one time. And some of them are
like multiple different pieces.
Yeah, exactly. So some are progressive, where one stamp you can get a finished part, or you might go through a progressive, die process where it has to stamp it like 3 or 4 times to get a finished part. So these right here, you can see it. There's a bracket. It's got the holes in it. It's got the bends in it and everything ready to go.
Wow. So that's impressive.
Yeah. So that's not necessarily, tractor pulling parts, but I mean, it's a stamping, and punch press process. So here's something really interesting. We're kind of jumping around here, but this is the largest. My buddy owns this in China, a Chinese guy in Ningbo, China. It's the largest injector nozzle manufacturer, I think, possibly in the world. It makes all the aftermarket injector nozzles for like, all the nozzle tip manufacturers. I mean, you name it, he makes it for them. And what's interesting about this, so it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see them sparks coming out there. They're EDMing in 10,000 diameter holes in those injector tips. So that, if you go back to that one again, Ryan, maybe you can show that again. So they're doing, 4, 5, 8, 10 nozzles at one time, and it's on a multi-axis machine. So the injector nozzle, you can actually see is, clamped in the chuck there, and you can actually see they're indexing to the next index and moving up at a different angle. And then it'll put the hole in, and then it'll index down to another angle and put another hole in. But yeah, they're the smallest holes I believe that they put in there are 8 thousandths diameter holes. And and the tolerances they hold on those are really super tight. And one of the things that they developed recently in injectors is the hole is not the holes we have in our injectors for tractor pulling. They're pretty much a straight through hole. A lot of the newer injectors for fuel economy, fuel efficiency, are finding out if they make a taper hole, meaning it's a reverse taper, the outside of the hole is the smallest diameter. The inside of the hole might be a couple thousandths bigger. It actually helps the spray atomize the fuel a little bit better and get better fuel efficiency. But
they talk about machining in thousandths. 8 thousandths is like 3 hairs.
Yep.
Yeah, or 2 hairs. I mean, it's not much. I mean, that's all the bigger those holes are through that injector tip, injector nozzle. And the machines that do those are super super complex. I was surprised that he even sent me that, because he's always so secretive about his stuff over there. But I was pretty impressed he sent me that video, because I was asking if he could show like a injector nozzle before and after and all that kind of stuff, but he didn't want to send it. But he actually sent me that video. They make what did he say, like 800 different variations of injectors and sizes and stuff. So for automotive and just about just any fuel injected engine.
Right. So explain EDM, what it is again. We did it. I think what that stands for and how it works.
Well, it's an electrical discharge machine. So basically you have an electrode, and you got to think of it almost like welding in reverse. When you're burning a hole, well, it's kind of like plasma cutting or a acetylene torch, but obviously a lot more controlled. The torch is using fire and heat to burn it, but this is an electrode. They discharge electrical current through to be able to burn a hole right through the material.
Okay. So how with that do they make that tapered hole that you were just talking about? With an EDM?
Yeah. So as they go through, they change the current that's going through the electrode. You'll have to excuse me. I'm getting over a cold, so talking for a while might be a little bit challenging today. Yeah. So they'll change the current that's going through the electrode. Is what they'll do.
And that current changes like the gauge of the hole a little bit as it goes or something. Huh?
Yeah, it'll burn a larger or a smaller hole.
Okay.
Because there's more current going through.
Wow.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Anybody have any questions on this stuff, please ask. This is the guy who would answer the questions for you on stuff like that. So, yeah, if you want to send us a question, that'd be great. Anybody watching? And then, what's this video here going on, Chris? If you get caught up here, do you need to drink water a minute, or you're good?
No, that doesn't help.
Okay.
Not a tequila would help, but I won't be able to talk at all pretty soon after that.
Yeah. You might not get the right answer either. I've been
Well, no, yeah, we'll talk about a lot of stuff other than machining when we start doing that. Yeah. Get talking get talking really smart, right?
Right.
So this here is a robotically loaded press brake. So the robot is picking up a pre-stamped out size, shape of material, and it takes it up and it puts it on a turnover station. You see it lay it down. And it's just like a human doing it. They lay it down, pick it up at a certain orientation, and then they bring it over the press brake, and it, precisely holds it in place, bends it up at whatever angle it's programmed at, turns it, puts another bend in it, and then it, sets it down on the table as a done part. So it removes the human element completely out of it, and get super precise parts.
So you still have, even though you have a robot doing it though, but you still have a person checking the quality to make sure that something isn't changed in it and it's doing it wrong or anything, right? Or
Yeah, exactly. They'll do some sampling of the parts. Depends how automated the the process is. Some of them actually have like another robot will grab it and do gauging, do some CMM work, coordinate measuring machine.
Right. All right. Yeah. Like we have neighbors that put a robot dairy in, and it's different. You're still there a lot of the time, but you're not milking the cows, but you're doing different things there. It's just a different management. It is easier, less people, but you still have to be there and do different things. Probably the same thing here. So.
Yeah, sorry. Had to get a drink of water, struggling through this.
Yeah.
So this is a laser machine here, cutting out sheet metal. I don't know what gauge that is in there currently, but it's a 3,300 watt laser, and it does a punch press operation. It's a 33-ton punch also. So you can see how it cut a shape out of there with a laser, picks it up, and then it's going to the next station to be then formed. So some of them pieces you'd see the robot picking up and loading in there and doing the bending on would come out of the laser also.
Okay.
But we can cut all kinds of create any type of shape, you know what I mean, to bend in any type of a form, to punch it out and make any type of part basically. So go ahead.
Pretty clean cut, or do you have to have somebody take the slag off like that?
No, it's as clean as can be. Yep. So when it's cutting that, it's nice sharp edge, no burrs, no nothing on it. So it's not like a torch cutter or anything like that, or like a plasma cutter. It's dead on perfect.
Okay.
How thick of metal can you cut one of those?
Oh, some of them lasers can cut an inch or over.
Wow.
Depending on how many watts it is. There's some pretty hefty lasers. Maybe on some next show in the future, I actually got laser welding. So that's a really neat process. Actually, welding two parts together with a laser.
Okay.
A lot of your differential housings in the on-highway truck applications now. A lot of those differential housings used to be bolted together, but now they're actually welded together in one unit. And when the thing goes bad, you just chuck them and get another differential housing after the gears wear out in them or wherever. They're not bolted together anymore.
So these machines, do they pretty much run 24/7 for you, and you just have people watching them, or?
Yeah, so the whole idea is lights out operation. So, depending on how long a job runs, you can load up, 3 or 4 different part numbers on the racks and run multiple part numbers, and they can, run overnight and then, come in the morning and load them up again.
Okay. That's pretty neat.
How big a press is that?
I believe I'm not 100% sure, but it is definitely over 100,000 ton press. So this is the aluminum blocks being forged. On the previous show, we weren't able to get those videos on there, but you'll see how big this is in a minute as the videos move on here. That's the blocks. That's a chunk of aluminum for our inline 6 blocks for the
Okay.
International John Deere.
So that chunk of aluminum is hot right now, right?
Yeah, they got to keep it in a certain temperature range. If it's too cold, it'll crack. If it's too hot, it just won't form right. Well, it'll crack also. So you'll see a guy stand off the side with a heat gun keeping it on it. So they only have so much time once they get it out of the furnace to actually forge it to their final size that they want.
Okay, so what does the press doing it the hot aluminum in the press, what does it do to make it stronger?
So when you're forging that material, you're realigning the metallurgical structure in the material, so the material becomes stronger. So when it's poured, material is only so dense. The molecular structure inside of the block, when you're forging, you're realigning the grain structure inside of the block, so it becomes a lot stronger.
Right. And when you're talking about grain structure, like when you pour something, you'd compare it to like rings in a tree, right? The grain of the
I guess
metal?
you could relate it to that. Yeah. So when you like take a cross section of that, polish it, and then put it in a microscope, you can actually see what the grain structure of the metal looks like.
Okay.
So you get an idea how big that press is. You've seen that guy there for a second.
Yeah. Thing's, wow.
Looks like.
And this isn't even a really big part for these guys.
They do bigger stuff?
Oh yeah, a lot bigger.
Yeah. Huh. So, I mean, I don't bring the tariffs up again, but the plants in China, are they still busy doing stuff, or what do you got going on there?
Some are, some aren't. It's really slow over there right now. So some of the plants, a lot of consumer goods, I would say, are really shut down and struggling. Like textiles and cell phones and different things like that. They're really slow or shut down. And then some of the plants where like this, where you can't move a process quickly, for a bunch of different reasons. If it's a safety critical part, you can't change that part in a month. It's got to go through life cycle testing and a bunch of stuff like that, or just even remaking a casting pattern in the United States or anything like that. I mean, it takes months to move parts, and processes back over from China to the United States. So manufacturing's slow in China, and it's going to become slower because people are just going to be moving stuff out of there.
Yeah. Unless they work a deal out.
Well,
right?
well, the Chinese economy is not good. Our economy is not great. Anything ag related is extremely slow right now. Any new stuff being bought, on-highway truck is slowing down a little bit. Automotive isn't super strong. No one's got a ton of extra money right now, so it's slow just because of that, let alone the tariffs.
Right. So have you heard that we've seen the boys block is done? Owner Robbie's machining looked like it was done.
Yep.
Kind of sounded like, but did the John Deere first? How far are they with that one?
Line born it this week.
Okay, so that's
right. And the IH one's right after that.
Okay.
So we should have short block. We should have short blocks here, build up next week.
Yeah.
Late next week.
Well, we pull in 3 weeks, so
I know.
Ours won't be ready. I know that, but
where's all the guts to yours at? Is that down at Robbie's or not?
Yeah, he has everything.
Yeah.
Yep. The motor will probably be done, but I don't know if the sheet metal and all that will be done. We'll be planting corn and making hay, so we don't have a lot of time to do anything with it anyway. So
Yeah, I seen it sitting there.
Yep, I did too. I tipped it around. The thing is really light. It's crazy compared to the old
No, I'm
Hypermix.
talking about the sheet metal part. I seen it sitting down
Oh,
there.
it is in Craig's, yeah.
Yep.
Good.
No, I've been down there quite a bit trying to get mine done.
Yeah, you gonna make it?
I think so. Yeah. Trying.
Good. You got dyno yours yet though, right?
Yeah, I'll be able to yank my engine out of it here probably in about a week to dyno
Okay.
it. We just need it in there to finish up the sheet metal. And that's these are some crazy brackets we made for my tractor. We're just kind of showing the progression of you start out with a solid chunk of material and then, you know, what you can machine it into. Those are some prototypes we're making. We got out of hand making some stuff on our tractor or on the pro stock.
Yeah.
We're not
I looked
going
at
to.
it, but some of the machining on it is pretty cool. What you did with it, you know, I think. You know, the regular guy's not gonna be able to do that if you don't have access to this stuff. You probably could, but you can dream some up and go do it. You know, where, you know, I'd have to go explain it to somebody how I'd want it done, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, I got some really good engineers that work for me too. I draw something up in my CAD system and then tell them to make it better, and they do, and then we make it. So this here, we're actually making a velocity stack here. So that's the start of it right there. That's a great big. So that other one was a bracket. There's a couple more good videos coming up here. So that's just a giant chunk of aluminum that we're starting out with. I think it was like 12-inch diameter chunk of aluminum that was probably like 10 inches long.
And what is that going to be?
The velocity stack, the intake.
Oh,
For the
You'll be able
turbo.
yep.
Yep, you'll be able to see it here.
And then velocity stacks, most of them are machined out like this. They're not pressed out. A lot of them, are they?
Yeah, no, they're all machined just like this. So this anybody's got a, you know, velocity stack on the front of their turbo. This is, I mean, I think there's probably some out there that might be stamped out, but I mean, any of them that are made out of billet, this is how every single one of them is made, just like this.
Yep. Yep.
Looks like it's got the X part right in it, or no?
No.
No, okay.
So this is after it's turned, and now we're doing a milling operation on it.
That's to help with the flow, correct?
Yep.
With the air before it goes in it.
Supposedly.
That's the idea.
That's the idea, yeah. It looks like a golf ball.
Which will speed up the air going into the turbo.
Yeah.
Before it gets there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Air flows over a rough surface better than a smooth surface.
yeah, that stealth fighter. Everyone's ever been around some of the military planes. I know you have, Greg, right? I mean, you know, stealth fighter specifically, you go up to that and you can't really, well, you're not supposed to touch it anyway, but if you the material that they use on the, you know, on the outer shell, you know, I've seen that stuff up touch and close it and everything. So it's like super abrasive. It's like a really, you know, really rough piece of sandpaper.
Yep.
I don't know why these guys put that in there. They're screwing around. we resurfaced some brake drums for a trailer. Now this thing here is interesting. This is a huge chunk of material we're starting. These are on the pro stock. These are the brackets that come off the front of the engine and hold on, that allow the side shields to attach to the front. So I don't even remember how big this chunk of materials is, like 24 inches by 18 by like 8 inches or something like that. And we got a harebrained idea. We're just going to make that bracket out of a solid chunk of aluminum. I guess we got too much time on our hands sometimes.
Well, it'll look cool. That's for sure.
So when you're making, a lot of these crazy parts like this, I mean, there's a lot of whittling that goes on. You can, that's the first operation right there where the base of it is made. And then you'll see later on where we turn it around and lay it down on its side. I think there's four operations to it to make the whole part. But that's I think it's 70-75 aluminum is what we made it out, and we can I think we made that bracket. It took us like 2 days to make it, probably like 20 hours of machining on it. But you'll see as it goes around here what it looks like when it's finished.
So the number that you're talking about, 70-71, you're talking about strength of like aluminum or hardness is basically what you're talking about. Lower the number, the softer; higher the number, the harder. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, pretty much. So a lot of your aluminums that you bend without it cracking are going to be, 5,000 series types aluminum, but then you get up into 6,000 series, 7,000 series, a 60-61 or a 70-75 that is a lot higher strength, but it's not near, it's not near as soft. Like the blocks, the aluminum blocks that we just made, they're made out of a 70-50 aluminum aircraft material. So it's a material that can be forged well, and it's got high tensile strength. Because, I mean, after we heat treated these things, they were at 75 to 79,000 PSI is what they came out at on the actual records. And there's a fine line there. You can make it too hard, and then the material will want to move around a lot when there's a lot of stress introduced to it. And you can make it too soft that it just won't, have the tensile strength. You got to, really hit the heat treat just right on, and then the tempering operations to make it a really durable material that doesn't move a lot. Because steel when we talk about moving, so it gets forces put on it, gets heat put on it, and you don't want it to be moved around, changing dimensions. So there's a fine line there to figure out how to process that material so it's stable.
So is this your bracket here too that's still cutting out?
Yeah. He took a lot of videos of this one.
That was a big project, probably. You said 20 hours to cut it down, whittle it down.
Yeah, two shifts, 4 different operations. A lot of this stuff we can, just let it run, and the guys are doing other stuff meanwhile, working on other projects.
How long
It's
does
all
it take?
you wrote the program for it all along before you did it, obviously, right? And
yeah, exactly. So we'll draw it up and dream it up, and then we'll Fusion is the software we use. There's several different softwares we use, but Fusion is kind of we use it for more of the 3D, strange milling like this. It's not super good for like production stuff, because production stuff, we want to program it so it's the most efficient type of a program where, you're reducing the amount of extra moves. You want to be able to make that part as quick as you can and get it out of the machine and put the next one in there for production. This here, we don't really care about, the cycle time, if you will. We care more about the quality of it. And so Fusion we use for this stuff, and like Esprit or Mastercam we use for production stuff. Fusion is a little bit better for this kind of programming, because we'll draw a shape up, and the system will say, okay, here's the block of material, here's the shape we want from it, and then it will actually write the program for you, and we'll tell it kind of how many operations and the different configurations it's going to be sitting in the machine, and then it'll generate the code for you.
That's impressive.
I got to step out for a second here, guys.
So now every time it changes an operation, that'll change the bits and stuff all on its own in a CNC machine, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it'll, when it programs it, depending on where you're trying to machine the material out, where, what kind of clearance you got, you may have, 30 different tools to be able to machine something like this, ball nose end mills and lollipop cutters. Lollipop cutters basically looks like a lollipop. The shank of the tool and is a small diameter, and then the cutting diameter on the end is a spherical shape, so you can get into strange places and do strange cuts. But yeah, it'll change tools several times and throughout the program.
So how long does it take to draw the program up for this, or to make the program for the machine to do it?
Oh, it doesn't take long at all. I mean, if you tell it, you're telling it basically what the finished part is, what your material size is, different boundaries on it, and then it'll write the code for you. It'll write all the tool paths for it. So it doesn't take long at all to write the program. Probably takes longer to draw the part. It takes longer to run the part than to program it or even draw it. Drawing the part is, not super complicated, and then programming it, is probably easier than drawing the part. So yeah, the programming is probably the easiest part of it. It never used to be. I mean, with the software systems we have right now, it makes it just so much easier. So when you look back on guys and gals that designed and made stuff back in the 20s and 30s when there were no computers, and they made some pretty crazy stuff. How did they do that? Nowadays when we have all this technology, you really don't have to think as much. You still have to think, but not like you used to. I mean, they had calculators and slide rules and hard gauge measuring devices, and they didn't. You just wonder how the heck did they even make stuff back then? I mean, there were some really, really smart people back then. A lot of trial and error too, but it's
yeah. Like helping Craig out, I used to, make shifters and stuff. So, we kind of draw a design and you just put it on there, trace it. You cut your material, cut it out in a bandsaw, and drill your holes how you wanted them and on the ends, and clean them up. And you rounded the outsides them really nice, and you sanded them all down, polished them. But it wasn't long, like that style of shifter. So he sent out and had a whole bunch of them made. They can make them quicker than what I could do messing around by hand.
Right.
Then all I do is finish them.
Yeah. Now we don't even do that. I mean, we draw, like my Pro Stock, the entire thing is drawn in SolidWorks. Everything, the frame, every single little part is drawn, and I can assemble the tractor and know what works and what doesn't before you even make the thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
because when you're fabricating, it's kind of trial and error when you're fabricating something. Like those brackets you bent that were bent and stamped in that press. When you make a bracket out of scratch, it's trial and error. Oh, it bent it too far. This ain't gonna work. Start over. And then you brackets you want. You try to duplicate them. So.
Well, yeah, you gotta think all this stuff is made all over the world, and it comes to one location, be assembled, and then it just assembles right up. But none of them parts are ever all in the same location to be tested, to make sure they could assemble. It's just all done with drawings and making sure everything fits together first. Like, like these brackets, the tractor is down at Wyoming's, and I got my CAD, all my drawings up here. We drew the brackets up, and I went down and bolted on the tractor. You don't even think about it, but it, fit perfect when we put it on there.
The holes are money.
Yeah.
Not an eighth off if you drilled it by hand. Oops.
So when you make a plan, Chris, and you get it done, does a computer tell you how long it'll take to make that part?
Yep. Yeah, as long as you put in the material type and your surface footages, which means the rate that you're going to remove material off the part. Yeah, we actually quote parts like very intricate parts that some parts we can quote without drawing them and actually running the model, the 3D model through the computer system. But then there's other parts where, like right now, we're quoting these housings made out of titanium for aerospace. There's 2 of them that bolt together, and there's a bunch of assembly work that needs to be done to them. But we're machining these housings out of titanium, and so something like that, we got to really pay attention to, how we're doing and what we're doing. So we, we'll take the model and we'll program the entire thing to get a cycle time before we send the quote off to the customer. Because on something like that, we could miss the quote by hours or more, if we don't really plan it out. Some of these other parts are a lot simpler. We don't have to run through that, but some of the really complicated parts we'll actually put in the computer system, program it, run the program, and then we know approximately what the cycle time is going to be. And it's not always perfect because the computer is assuming your work holding is 100% stable, and you're not going to have any problems at all with holding onto the part or chatter or whatever. So, that's something you always got to accommodate is real life machining conditions.
So what's this finished part do then on the tractor? What is it?
All it is it attaches the front of the head, and them 2 pads there. We can stop it there. Them 2 pads are, the one pad is the side shield, sits on the bottom of it, and the other pad is one of the buttons that holds the side shield. The 2 that pad and the one way up top have the buttons on it where the side shield is held onto the engine.
Oh.
So it's at 45 degrees because it's coming off of a V8 head.
Huh.
That's all it is.
Wow.
Well, that'll be pretty neat. Whenever you get it done and on the track, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to come and look at it. So yeah.
I'm gonna be really glad when I got it done and I have it on the track.
Let's hope you don't blow it up the first time. That would stink.
Or the second time.
Yeah, or at all. Don't blow it up.
Or the third time.
All that shiny stuff covered in oil and crap, and you got to clean all that up. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do we got next?
I don't know. It's your video. I haven't seen it yet.
I think we have induction heat treating. That's a neat process.
Can you fast forward to that, Ryan? There you go. Or is that what it is?
Yeah, he went there. Just go from there. That's good. I don't know why they showed that. So this is a neat process. So right here, we're making steering knuckles, steering shafts. So the machine has got a copper electrode, and what we're doing is we're heating up the ID of that part so it expands. It's a shrink fit. So we heat up the ID of that part. We machine that one part, and we heat up the ID of it so it expands. Heat we'll make that ID bigger. And then the other part, we drop it in there and then we cool it off. And it's like it's like a 6,000ths press, meaning the shaft is 6,000ths bigger in diameter than the ID, but we can open the ID up by heating it and then dropping the shaft in there. When it cools off, that thing will never come out of there.
Yep.
This is actually
Robbie used to do that years ago when we used to use the stock input shafts on the tractors. He'd heat them up and put a solid piece inside them when they weren't, before they were solid.
Uh-huh.
That was years ago. I remember that, and they never turned. They didn't ever move.
Right. Now this is the next operation. We're actually hardening the part here. So it's the electricity is in a copper electrode up top. And so what it's doing is and you can back up a ring again if you want to show it where it first starts out there. There you go. Right there is fine. So it's a very time sensitive and intricate process. So we want to harden that part in a certain area. We don't want to harden the whole thing. So you use induction heat treating a lot to do that. So them splines in that area right below it is where a bearing goes on. So we designed the electrodes to heat up that area. You can see that getting red hot, and that's electricity that's getting that, it's grounding basically and getting that hotter than heck. And then in a certain area, we move it down through the electrodes in that area we want it heat treated, and time and temperature is very critical to get your heat treat the right depth and the right hardness. So as that moved down through that, heated up, and then it's a quench operation in that water solution there. It's a very specific water solution with some chemicals mixed in it that actually quench that, and you can kind of see right there, see how the splines are darker, and then that bearing shaft area is darker there. We can harden that area, just that area, that part.
Wow.
And then that you can see the parts laying on the belt going through the furnace. So what we do then is we run them through the furnace and we temper it. And then the next operation is they get ground, they get OD ground. So then the bearing will slide over that OD. But, there's certain parts that you want to be able to heat treat in just some areas where there's a lot of wear, potential wear on that part in a certain area, but you don't want to heat treat the whole thing. Heat treat the whole thing, it'll become brittle and it'll break. You want to just heat treat the areas. You want, the best of both worlds. You want some areas to be hard, other areas to be more pliable and soft, so it can take, so it's not hard and doesn't, or, too hard and doesn't crack. So
that's what they do with camshafts, right? The lobes, they harden them all, but they don't want the shaft to get hard, right? Hard face the lobes.
Yeah, the lobes are a lot harder and a lot deeper case hardness than the shaft area. So the shaft area you want hard because you got the bearings. It's gonna be riding on the bearings. The lobes are a heck of a lot harder because there's a lot of stress there. But then you got to be careful on the ends. You always hear about people breaking the nose of their crank off or the nose of a camshaft off. Well, they got it too hard on the ends, like where the threads are and stuff, because that cross section is thinner there, so it doesn't take as long for it to heat up. That's why it breaks off, is because it's too hard in that area. So when you make a cam or a crankshaft, it's really, you got to be really careful on how you heat treat the thing, where the areas that are supposed to be hard are hard, and the areas that are supposed to be softer are not too hard, where it'll just actually break.
Right. All right.
That's cool. That's stuff people don't get to see, or I don't get to see. It's just awesome, the technology that goes into that, and how far it's come. How far it's come along.
Yeah, and
right.
Some of the things that'll be interesting too at some time is to maybe show the front end where we're designing the parts and programming them, and there's a lot of other. There's dozens of other processes that we do or some of my suppliers do that are really cool. Broaching is really a neat process. We'll have to get to that sometime. You can see some of the broaching operations, maybe some of the grinding stuff, and yeah, a lot of the stuff is all parts that go into tractor pulling engines for sure. That the different operations we do, different processes.
Like making rods and same thing, milling the rods out, making the caps, harden them to a certain degree as well, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yep. Rods, you got to be really careful with them. Any of the parts that have a lot of stress, a lot of load, a lot of friction, you got to get them things just right or they'll just fail. And, like turbo wheels, that's a whole nother, the bearings and the turbos and the turbo wheels, when the guys are making turbos out there like Jim and Steve and them guys, man, there's a lot of trial and error there because they are way beyond any type of technology that's out there to know that stuff is going to hold together. When I talk to some of my buddies that work at, some of the large OEMs, what we're doing, they don't even believe me, the type of RPMs we're spending with stuff or what we're doing to some of our engines. They just don't even believe me. But, like a turbo wheel, you could miss by a couple thousandths in a cross section on some of those fins, and it's going to freaking come off. The material is only going to withstand so much, centrifugal force or, side load because of the air hitting it or there's just so many different factors there. So one thing that's really hard on turbos is when at the end of the track, if you just pound back out of the throttle and don't try to ease out of it, man, that's hard on a wheel. Causes, spinning at 100,000 RPMs and going to nothing really quick. That's hard on a wheel. That a lot of guys should try to back out a little bit slower because otherwise that wheel gets a lot of fatigue from doing that.
Yep.
And at the end of the run, that Greg, this. At the end of the run, a lot of times the turbos, why they blow up at the end of the run is because you're starting to spin out at the end of the run. It's already taken a shitload of load on those fins going down the track with air going through it, and then you're spinning out the end. That turbo speeding up, and it's hot by that time, so the density of that material has changed by that point, and that's why some of them turbos blow up at the end because they all of a sudden they're speeding back up again, and they're already hot, and it just doesn't like it. The fins just decide they don't want to hang on no more.
Right, and I don't know, people that don't know, we spray a lot of water in front of that turbo to keep it from getting too hot, but at the end they still do. And I have 4 or 5 nozzles in front of mine. I know everybody does too, but there's a lot of water going through the turbo. Yeah,
because sometimes, depending on what kind of clearance you got with your housing, they'll grow enough, they'll touch the housing, and then that'll take a fin out. When one fin leaves, they all leave because they get bunched up in there. They don't like each other, and they start fighting.
That's what I've always thought when they're testing turbo wheels. It explodes. How do they know which part let go first? Because it's junk. You can't see anything. What you did or why it did that.
You kind of just described the packed bar on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Get all bunched up.
They're all bunched up and bumping into each other, and then they.
Yeah. Crazy.
So, is that the end of the videos then?
That's what we got for this week. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I want to make sure we covered everything. And John's got a little video for a couple minutes too here, you said. And so hang on here, Chris. Stay on and watch. Do you want to still do it tonight yet, John, or do it next week, or what do you got?
Chris, just this Friday, I'll be with Lori Schultz in Madison. I'm going to go to the radio stations with her. I'm going to be on the Zone, Magic 98, Q106 Country Station, and possibly the Farm. But I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock. It could be an hour, 2 hours, but we'll be helping out with the UW Children's Hospital Radiothon, and also, talking about our poll that we have, which is June 7th from UW Children's Hospital and representing Badger State Tractor Pullers. So all you guys that are around locally that can listen in, and anybody that's willing to donate to the Radiothon, donate. You're going to hear some great stories of some great accomplishments of the UW Children's Hospital, and you're going to hear stories too that how great things were, but still didn't work out. And you guys both know that, you know, there's success, and there's times that it's not always successful, but they've helped the families and children along the way, and everything they do for research helps the next one. So, yeah, so it's going to be a great thing, great for Badger State, and be promoting our polls. So that'll be awesome.
That's right.
That's one of the key. That's one of the key things. There was the research and what they learned to help people in the future. Also, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And you hear a lot of good things coming down the pipe. You know, breakthroughs and stuff they have, and it all starts right there.
Yep. So yeah, so I'll be chumming with Lori. The Radiothon, I think, is Thursday, Friday, I believe. 2 days. But Friday is the time that I'll be with her. 8 to 9 for sure. Could be 8 to 10, but we'll be bouncing around between the radio stations, from what I understand, and should be a fun day, and represent Badger State Tractor Pullers and all our pulling family. So be happy to do that.
The last time I did it was at the Children's Hospital. Where are you going to be at?
Be right at the radio stations. So
right at the radio. Okay.
Yep. The stations are all in the same building, so you just bounce from studio to studio, and away you go.
Yep. Cool. So that's. Anybody have any questions on or comments? Please get them in here quick. I'm getting our viewership is down a little bit tonight because everybody's in the field. Is what I'm thinking. But
all the tens of viewers, right?
Yep. All 10 viewers are in the field. Yeah. But people watch it. They'll get home and watch the recording later on. You hear a lot of comments. Yeah, I watched the one from 3 weeks ago last night. That was pretty cool. That's you hear people say that all the time.
Yeah, a lot of people do watch later on in the week, and numbers grow usually tremendously towards the end of the week. And from tonight to Friday is a pretty good. Friday comes along, Friday afternoon. It's a pretty good judge of how many people watch as you see the numbers on Friday afternoon. But we thank everybody for watching us every week. Sorry we weren't on last week, as we were with one of our pulling family, Bill Smith and his family. So that's why we were not.
Yeah, we're going to have a really good show this year for people in Badger State. There's a lot of new tractors. I think we're going to have one of the best pro stock classes in the nation this year. Just in Badger State. Just crazy.
Yeah, for people that don't know, the Buck Eaters in Wisconsin now, the Wilkie family will be pulling it or put it on the track. And if you get yours out, Chris, and I think Round is building another one, but I don't know if that'll make it or not. So there's going to be new tractors out, plenty of them, just in that class. There's other ones out too.
Scott Koenig's waiting to smell the diesel.
Right.
The cetane and the ether.
Yep. Yeah.
What is the first pull for you guys for the pros?
That'll be it will be the benefit pull.
Yep. June 7th.
Yep. That's the only one we have in June for the pro stocks.
Yeah, otherwise it's Edgerton on July 5th is the next one, I think.
Yep. The Saturday the 5th. Yep.
I've seen in our schedule, there's still a few that need to be filled in yet. Beaver Dam, and there's a couple other ones need to be filled in yet. Are those filled in or not?
When we get the contract back from them, they will be filled in. We don't put them in until we have a signed contract.
Gotcha.
That's why they're not. They're all going to be the same. We just haven't gotten it back yet. So we'll be getting there. So, and again, anybody ask about Macville, it's going to be in goddamn
Seymour.
Next town up. Seymour, yes. Sorry. Little brain part there. Yeah, Seymour. And then that'll be 2 tracks up there too, I believe. So it'll be a good show up there. I've pulled there. It's not a bad place to pull. So
yeah, it's like what, 25 minutes north.
10 miles from North Macville, he said.
Okay.
So, yep. I'm not sure, but that's what I remember. I'm pretty sure he said. Roger said. So all be good. And then that's the second week. That's Father's Day weekend in June. So we got light pros there, Silver Series and Badger State, two-wheel drive trucks from Badger State, diesel trucks from Badger State, alcohol supers, and one other class, Super Farm, Champions Tour Super Farm will be there, and Badger State co-sanctioned. So that'll be a pretty good show. So,
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
So,
all right.
we got our hour in. What's
Thanks,
that?
everybody. We'd like to thank Front Street Toys, Casper Egg, Slama Enterprises, Trip Downing, Wetton Camp Transport, and Chris Feller. Better put your plug in there for your machine shop.
Yep. Sussex Machine, and I don't know what they're all called, but are they all called Sussex Machine, or are they all different?
Their parent company, Sussex Machine, but they're all different.
Okay. Oh, and thank you again, Chris. It's everybody really appreciates the videos and the machining. We get a lot of comments when we do this kind of stuff, and I like seeing it too. I mean, we learn every day.
Yeah.
We can talk about tractor pulling, but how do you make the parts?
Yeah, and some of the videos tonight applied indirectly, but there's a lot. We're just scratching the surface on some of the different processes, and there's some really neat stuff out there yet.
Well, I know you took me through a couple of the one in Sussex and the one in Milwaukee there, and all the robotic things that just that amazed me how that just kept running and doing everything perfect each pass. That was pretty cool. So appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate everybody watching. So thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
next Monday.
Yeah. Have a good night.